Krishna's really delicately explained to Arjuna that renunciation is not just your physical state where you take your body into that different space. It's a state of mind and heart that even if you are in the world, you can be renounced. Kabir says, I walk through the marketplace, but I am not a purchaser. We'll begin our discussion on chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, if you have it. Chapter 5 is renunciation and yoga. O Krishna, you have praised both renunciation as well as yoga. Please tell me which is better. Very interesting. We discussed it just briefly at the end. Which one is better? Should I engage in the world through action, or should I leave and go to the Himalayas or to a nice yoga retreat where I can sit on a beach and get away from all of the troubles and suffering and difficulty of challenges of life, paying the bills, working in our life, dealing with difficult family members and friends. Should I just go where I can be with friends and in a nice, calm environment and meditate and get away? Krishna says both renunciation and karma yoga lead to the highest good. But of the two, karma yoga is better than renunciation of action. The reason why is karma yoga better than renunciation? Why does Krishna say that? If we think about all of these beautiful monks and nuns and beings who dedicate themselves to a life of renunciation, to dedicate themselves to God, the reasoning here is dharma. One who neither hates nor desires, or who is without duality, is known to ever be renounced. Such a person, great armed one, is easily freed from bondage. Krishna's really delicately explained to Arjuna that renunciation is not just your physical state where you take your body into that different space. It's a state of mind and heart that even if you are in the world, you can be renounced. Kabir says, I walk through the marketplace, but I am not a purchaser. I'm in the marketplace, but I'm not buying. I'm not buying the attachment to the material world. I'm just here, and I'm going to do it all as an offering. One who neither hates nor desires, and who is without duality, is known to ever be renounced. Such a person is easily freed from bondage. We free ourselves from the bondage of samsara, this world of material existence, through karma yoga. Only the immature speak of the distinction between Sankhya and yoga. Here, Sankhya is referring to renunciation, a path of renunciation. Not the wise. By properly following either path, a person attains the results of both. The position obtained by the followers of renunciation is achieved by the followers of yoga. One truly sees, who knows that Sankhya and yoga are one. But renunciation without the discipline of yoga is difficult to achieve. The silent sage who engages in yoga quickly reaches Brahman. This is quite a difficult verse to comprehend there. But I think, in my view, Krishna is speaking here of the fact that these varying paths all lead to God. He's pluralistic in his approach. Yes, you can do it through offerings made through the actions, or you can do it through the offerings made in the ashram. Both lead to the same place. But what is the intention for the benefit of the world? That is there. One engaged in yoga with a mind purified, who is self-controlled and who has subdued the senses, whose soul has become the soul in all beings. Beautiful. Even though performing action is never bound. the Sanskrit words are Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Sarva Bhut Atma. Bhut Atma. Sarva means all, the indwelling spirit of the indwelling spirit. So when you have become the innermost essence of every living being, then you transcend suffering. It's a great idea that when you become my soul and I become your soul, isn't it beautiful? Just like namaste. When I say namaste, the divinity bowing within me to the divinity bowing to within you, and you bowing back to me, we're recognizing that inner divinity as a practice within here. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, the indwelling soul. Um, One engaged in yoga with mind purified, who is self controlled and subdued the senses, whose soul has become the soul of all beings, even though performing action is never bound. The learned person who is engaged in yoga thinks, I do nothing at all. Isn't that amazing? The learned person who's doing all this work in the world does nothing. Often people would come to Maharaji with so many questions and ideas and thoughts, and they say, Maharaji, how do you do this? How have you managed to do that? How do you have all these temples? And how do you serve so many people? Maharaji would just say, I don't know anything. Speak to Hanuman. Go to the Murti. I don't do anything. He's not doing it. It's all the divine just acting and acting and acting. It's a very profound idea of just losing the ego and letting the divine do it. In one of my favorite Upanishads, the Kena Upanishad, um, there is a story of gods who win a victory. And when the gods win this victory, there's Agni, there's Indra, there's Vayu. So Agni is the fire, the god of fire. Indra, the god, what was the god of the heavens. Then you have Vayu, which is the force of the wind, and they win this victory in battle, and they get a sense of pride. And Brahman, the great spirit, the divine within all beings, manifests, and they don't know what Brahman is. They've never seen Brahman or never realized that state or that spiritual divinity before. And before them comes a small blade of grass. And Brahman, the voice thunders, Agni approaches that blade of grass and says, "Who are you, apparition? Like, who is this great being in front of me?" And Agni, the fire, says, "I am Agni, the great fire. I could burn everything on earth." And the voice Brahman says, "Could you burn this blade of grass?" And Agni fires fire at the blade of grass to try and burn it, and cannot burn the blade of grass, and then goes back to the gods and says, there was this divine being here, and I just couldn't understand what it was, but I couldn't burn the blade of grass. And then the wind goes, Vayu goes and tries to blow away. So when Brahman asks Vayu, "Who are you?" He says, "I am the mighty wind. I can blow anything on earth." And then Brahman, that single blade of grass, says, "Could you blow this blade of grass?" And Vayu, the wind, was unable to blow the blade of grass away. And then returns back to the gods. So it's a beautiful story that goes back, and it's very poetically written. And then ultimately, all of these gods, including Indra, they just are in awe of divinity. It's something beyond the beyond, and the story seeks to illustrate how Brahman, the ultimate reality, the divine, is beyond anything that we can do. And it shows that humility, that the gods lost that humility of understanding that they are not the ones doing it. Any victory that we have is the victory of Brahman. There's a beautiful Ramayana verse where Hanuman, let me see if I can find it. I shared it with many people recently. Just bear with me 1 second. Let's see. Ram Kaju Kine Ram Kaju Kine Binu Mohi Kaham Vishram. Hanuman says, Until I complete the work of Ram, how can I even think of rest? I thought that was so beautiful that he would never rest because he's always working for Ram. Ram Kaj, work of Ram, kinu binu mohi, kaham vishram. Until I complete the work of Ram, how can I ever rest? There is somebody with true purpose in their life, that they're just doing Ram's work. He's not doing his work. He's doing Ram's work. He's doing God's work in the world. The learned person who is engaged in yoga thinks, I do nothing at all. Such a person knows that while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, going about, sleeping, breathing, talking, eliminating, grasping, and opening and closing the eyes, even, only the senses are engaged in their objects. It's only the senses. It's not us. It's not the Atman. It's not the indwelling spirit. It's just these physical senses that are being attracted to the movements of the world that we're following. So we draw back. One who acts without attachment, offering all actions to Brahman, is not tainted by evil, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. What a beautiful image of the lotus leaf flying on water, untouched. This image comes again and again through Hinduism and Buddhism and Sikhism and Jainism. You see this example of the lotus leaf resting on water untouched. Those who are yogis perform all actions with the body, mind, and the senses, and without attachment for self purification. A person who is engaged in this way gives up the results of action and attains living peace. But one not following this path becomes attached to all of these results of the actions and is bound by the desires of the world. So ultimately, if we want peace, we have to act from this mindset, spiritual view, that we're acting in the world. The alternative is we're always bound, bound to attachment, bound to worldliness, bound to materialness, which is fluctuating with the success, with the hot or cold of the world. But spiritual view of acting is where we lose the ties of bondage. Krishna uses the words bound by desire. One not following the path becomes attached to the results of action and is bound by desire. But one who works as an offering attains peace. That is really interesting. Like I find it even with the work we do at Godharmic, the people who are able to sustain long-term service are people who are just doing it for love, who are just doing it for benefit of the world. But the people who are doing it short term just to get the high of even service, that, oh, I'm doing something great, I'm, feeling so great about this, they often won't last a long time in the service. They would come, they would, like a flame that shines brightly for a short while and then falls away. But whereas somebody who is committed in a way where they are able to offer their work to God, then that is Nishkam Karma Yoga that the Gita talks about. And you will get Shantim, Apnoti Nasiktam. So that is the Shanti from not being bound and attached to the work that you're doing. Mentally renouncing all actions, the embodied one who is in control dwells happily in the city of the nine gates, which is the body, while neither performing action nor causing any action to be performed. The Lord creates the means of actions. The Lord creates the means of actions, and the word for Lord here is used as Prabhu, the embodied being, the Lord within. The Lord neither creates the means of actions, the actions of the world, nor even the relationship between action and result. This is carried out automatically by the nature of matter. The Lord does not accept the result of anyone's good or evil deeds. In this world, knowledge is covered by ignorance that bewilders all living beings. So I think there's a really interesting point made here by the Bhagavad Gita that what what is happening in the world is due to our karma, due to the world, the nature of the world. It's not God that's making bad things happen to people. It's not the spirit that's doing that. It's karma that's doing that. But we have the ability to go back to God, to connect with God. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyate sukham vasi navadvare pure dehi neva kurvan puryanan. Mentally renouncing all of those actions, the embodied one who is in control dwells happily. God is always happy. Divinity is always happy. Satchitananda, as in yoga philosophy, they'll say the nature of the soul is truth, awareness, and bliss. Always happy. The indwelling self is always happy. It's the stuff of the world that's changing. It's the material existence, like the great suffering that's taken place. It's not divinity that's doing that. It's anger that's doing that. It's desire that's doing that. Like this terrible terrorist attack that happened yesterday. It's bewilderment. It's the Lord does not accept the result of anyone's good or evil deeds. In this world, knowledge is covered by ignorance that bewilders the living beings. It's people who are bewildered. Their knowledge is covered because they lack the knowledge that we are all one. They lack the knowledge that all paths lead to God, as the Gita describes it. They lack the knowledge that ultimately divinity exists within the heart of those people who they harm. The Supreme shines like the sun for those whose ignorance has been destroyed by the knowledge of the soul. The Supreme shines like the sun for those whose ignorance has been destroyed by knowledge of the soul. Connecting with the Atman, connecting with divinity, the sun shines, and all of that ignorance becomes destroyed. I've quoted this before, but I always remember it in that beautiful book, Love Everyone, by Parvati Marcus. There's a part by Dr. Larry Brilliant, and he speaks about being in the presence of Neem Karoli Baba, and he says, yes, the job of saints is to love everyone. And that's okay. That's great. Like all of the great spiritual teachers of the world loved everyone. But when he was with Maharaji, he also started to love everyone. And that for him was the true miracle that, it's like how we get warm from the sun. And then that warmth, we hug other people and they also get warm. So he started to feel love for other beings just being in the presence of Maharaji. And when I read these words, 5:16 of the Gita, the Supreme shines like the sun for those whose ignorance has been destroyed by knowledge of the Atman. Those whose intellect, mind, and very foundation who are focused on God and whose sins are dispelled by knowledge never again return to this world. This is a very important verse, particularly in the context of uh, Indian philosophy and Hinduism. The wise see with equal vision the learned and gentle person, a Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, even a dog, and even those who are outcasted. The wise see with equal vision all of those. Everybody's equal, sub ek, sub one. For me, that is absolutely foundational to the understanding of the spiritual substance of Hinduism. Equal vision for all living beings. This verse for me transcends all caste difference, all difference between people of different cultures or belief or tradition. We have here truly sub-ek, equal vision. Those whose minds are situated in serenity, have come over birth in this world like Brahman. They are faultless and serene. Consequently, they are situated within Brahman. We are very fortunate to be in this human birth and to contemplate that we can transcend the material instincts, or those reptilian instincts that we have to fight or flight. This is transcending those uh, uh, qualities that hold us just to eat, or to gain more wealth, or to uh, gain more prosperity just for ourselves or for our own people. Spirituality is transcending that and growing it to equal uh, all living beings. And the following verses here talk about knowing Brahman. For those who are reading along, we're on verse 20 of the chapter 5. One thus situated does not rejoice upon obtaining what is desired, nor does one person lament upon receiving what is undesired. With intelligence fixed and without bewilderment, the knower of Brahman becomes established in Brahman. Not getting overly um, proud or pleased when things go right, or not falling apart and lamenting when things don't go our way. We maintain our presence within Brahman. This is true spiritual teaching for the ups and downs of life that we will all encounter. Remain established in Brahman and you become Brahman. One whose mind is unattached to the external objects, who finds happiness within, and who is in union with Brahman, enjoys unbounded happiness. Sukham akshayam asnute. Who doesn't want that? Unbounded happiness. Who doesn't want that? Like, that's what we're all seeking through every moment of our lives, through wealth accumulation, or through our relationships, or through everything that we're achieving. But to achieve that unbounded happiness, we have to find it within our own hearts. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, those pleasures that arise from contact of the senses with their objects are sources of misery, for they have a beginning and an end. One who is wise does not take pleasure in them. Before leaving this body, one who is able to tolerate the urges that arise from desire and anger is a disciplined person and is happy in this world. So a lot of mention of sukha, happiness, in these verses 20 to 23. And I think it's a little bit of a guide to happiness here. That, if your happiness comes from desire and anger, then that anger, it will be short-lived. Kind of like a sugary snack that might give us a short high and we go up and we feel great, but then if we've had too much of it, we might feel a bit unwell afterwards, or not too good. It goes up and it goes down. But the inner happiness, the unbounded happiness of love of God, Maharaj said nothing is permanent except love of God. Nothing is impermanent. Nothing is permanent except for the love of God in this world. That love. Before leaving this body, one who is able to tolerate the urges that arise from anger and desire is a disciplined person and is happy in this world. A yogi, that's each one of us, a yogi whose happiness is within themselves, whose enjoyment is within, and is illuminated within, and who is absorbed in Brahman, attains liberation in Brahman. Isn't it such a beautiful verse for these talks that we call Journey Within? A yogi whose happiness is within, whose enjoyment is within, and who is illuminated within, and who is absorbed in Brahman, obtains liberation in Brahman. I think Krishna, the words that he uses, Brahma Nirvanam, to find nirvana in the state of Brahman within our own hearts, to have that Buddhist term, the term that's used extensively in Buddhism, nirvana, but also extensively in the Gita. Okay, let's see where we are. I think we're going to go ahead and finish the chapter. There's only 3 or 4 verses left. Seers whose sins are destroyed, whose doubts are removed, and who are self-controlled and rejoice in the welfare of all beings, attain liberation in Brahman. For the self-realized sage who is freed from desire and anger, again, desire and anger coming up, Kama Krodha, Kama Krodha. Remember those 2 words, desire and anger. Those are the 2 gateways to suffering that Krishna speaks about again and again and again and again. These are the 2 things, desire and anger. Those are the ones that will pull you down. Seers whose sins are destroyed, whose doubts are removed, who are self-controlled, and who rejoice in the welfare of all beings attain liberation in Brahman. For the self-realized one, who is freed from desire and anger, and whose thoughts are controlled, liberation in Brahman is close at hand. Shutting out all of the external objects, fixing the vision between the eyebrows, balance on the incoming and outgoing breaths. Note here we have a reference to pranayama and the practice here. We have a practice, shutting out the external objects of the world, fixing one's vision between the eyebrows, and balancing the ingoing and outgoing breath. The silent sage, whose senses, mind, and intelligence are controlled, who is intent on liberation, and who has given up desire, fear, and anger, attains liberation. The one who knows me to be the recipient of all sacrifices and all austerities and all work, who knows me as the great Lord of the world and as the friend of all beings, attains great peace. Sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim rachati. The friend of all beings. Know God as the friend of all beings. Know them. Know God as the best friend of all of us, of every living being. And therefore, transcending the ups and downs of the world through having that staff of situated life, we achieve liberation and um, we transcend the bondage of the world. Very profound chapter on renunciation and how we see happiness, how we achieve happiness in the world, but through action. Isn't it quite an interesting pairing to put renunciation and action together? When we think of renouncing something, we think of going away. Like I often think of the weekends. Often people think, oh, I've worked so hard this week. I'm going to rest this weekend. I find that an interesting concept. The Gita finds that an interesting concept. I've worked so hard. I'm going to rest this weekend. But Gita is telling you to rest in the work, peace in chaos. If you have that, you don't require the rest. Then all work is rest. That's that's the place. Maharaji never stopped. He was just constantly saying, well, Maharaji didn't say, oh, okay, I'm taking the weekend off. It's all your service. It's all love. The RT keeps going. Okay, we should, celebrate and offer our Gita Yagya to the victims of the Kashmir attack today. And, really, it's heartbreaking to see that. And I would love us to offer that prayer of this yagya of the Bhagavad Gita, this sacred offering that we explore together to all of the beings who lost their lives and to the wives who lost their husbands and to the families who are mourning. Um, this kind of wickedness still exists in our world, but it should strengthen our resolve to serve as Hanumanji served and to make this world a slightly better place, uh, better than what we have received it as this sacred opportunity. I'll pause there.